Okay, so very excellent morning to you all. Happy Friday. Um, how's everybody doing today? How's everyone doing this morning? You guys all good? Everyone hanging in there? Um, it's been an interesting week. We're going to talk about it. We'll talk a little bit about the week, what we learned, what we did, what we're doing, etc., etc. And one of the most important things that we need to cover in upcoming market conditions. So excited about all that. Good, good. Glad everyone's doing good. Of course, guys, any questions, any comments, anything, just anything, just shoot it over. Type it over. I want to hear about it. Let's keep the lines of communication cranking. We've got some good stuff we want to cover. Okay, so let's get going. Let's talk a little bit about what these markets are up to. We are coming into a very crucial time of year, super crucial, and I am, we've been talking pretty heavily about it for some time, the pre-summer activity. So let's discuss what that might look like and what that might be up to. And so on. So today, nothing too crazy in the in the news side of things. We did see a big Chinese trade balance, and I think we're getting some decent carryover into the Australian pairs for some of that. So we've seen the Aussie pairs go a little bit crazy, but this week's been interesting, right? We see quite a bit of movement across the boards, across all the charts here in the last basically several hours, right? So the market hasn't done too much all week long. There's been some decent short-term trades, but the bigger moves, the bigger, better types of setups that we're looking for have just been so slow this week. That's why I sent out that message earlier this week to the group and just said, guys, I promise I'm not sleeping at the wheel, so to speak. We're just waiting. We're just waiting for good setups. One thing that I don't like to do is I don't like to trade when there's, not that typical thing that I want to see to trade. Where we can find some really good high probability trades and so on. Okay, so that's kind of how the week was. It was definitely one of the slowest weeks we've had in a while. As we started the webinar off, or we started the week off with the Monday webinar, and I said, "Wow, for the first time in a really, really, really long time, we don't have an open position to start Monday," and we didn't have an open position until kind of midweek, and then we jumped in this dollar peso. We'll talk about the dollar peso here in a moment. But definitely an interesting week. Definitely a lot of chop, a lot of consolidation, and then things have kind of started to move a little bit. One of the biggest things to talk about, though, here is, again, we're right in that early April area, creeping up into mid-April, and we've talked about this a lot, which is the dollar index and kind of that pre-summer push. Now, it could be starting right this moment. It's kind of an any day kind of a thing here. What I'm looking for, the real confirmation that we're going to need for kind of that big pre-summer push is get a nice breakout of this rising wedge. And I think that's, ultimately, and I'll qualify this statement a little bit here, ultimately I'm looking for dollar weakness, and I know we have a dollar strength trade on the dollar peso. But I'm looking for dollar weakness, for the big picture for the long term. But, as we mentioned at the start of the week, we're open to the possibility that the dollar index might make one little spike up into that 100 level before selling off. Or it might just sell off, might just go for it. And so we've got some interesting cases of, of what we want to see in both directions, specifically dollar peso and euro dollar, right? So dollar peso, euro dollar are kind of the two cases that I'm saying, okay, we could see, either of these happen. We've got Aussie dollar, and New Zealand dollar that kind of make us a little bit question, what the big move's going to be So in kind of looking at those real quick, remember we've got the Aussie dollar, which has made a pretty nice little move the last several hours here. So again, just the last few hours, we've seen this nice move on Aussie dollar. We still have, we've got some things that we're watching for, some market imbalances from the flash crash here, and missed pivots. We've got, a market imbalance up here above, so it creates a little bit of a, this could go kind of either direction. So we're seeing that on Aussie dollar, just kind of looking at a couple of dollar pairs. But remember, one thing the Aussie dollar does not have is it doesn't really have any missed pivots on this, on this run down, right? We go from this high all the way back here, January 2018. It kind of hit everything all the way down, and there's not really any imbalances up here on Aussie dollar. Whereas New Zealand dollar has quite a few. We had this big sell-off from up here, and we've got monthly and weekly and daily pivots galore, market imbalances way up here, and some other things along the way down there. But Aussie dollar has kind of maintained this this steady move down, while the New Zealand dollar was a little more swift and gives us more things to target up above. So we're saying, okay, we've got maybe more interesting targets down below on Aussie dollar, and probably more interesting targets up above on New Zealand dollar. Euro dollar, same kind of situation. By the way, while we're on this chart, just want to point out, just want to have a little look at this. We're probably going to end up with a bit of a bullish engulfing candle here on the daily chart. Pretty significant, pretty significant. And so we're gonna be looking at that and talking about some possible New Zealand dollar trades there. So just kind of keep watch there. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But the case I'm kind of making here is we've been looking, which direction is all of this headed? Towards dollar strength, towards dollar weakness. We've got a pretty good case for New Zealand dollar, US dollar to head higher and see dollar weakness here. We've got a decent case for the Aussie dollar to head lower and see dollar strength there. And then, of course, the euro dollar, we've been watching and tracking and trading, looking at this like crazy all week long, the euro dollar, because again, we have all these big missed targets up above, weekly pivot, monthly pivot, weekly and monthly pivots over here, market imbalances over here. We've got all these big levels on euro dollar. So we definitely want to trade, excuse me, we definitely want to trade this thing higher. And it just, I looked at these little dips this week and I thought, these look like good spots to buy the euro dollar. But then I just didn't pull the trigger because there was just so much chop and so much lack of activity. And then again, the last several hours of the entire week, we get this nice little breakout right here. So, we're definitely leaning towards a little bit of dollar weakness today for sure. But, what's the big push in the big picture going to be? Now, again, I'm looking for big picture dollar weakness, and I want to see this euro dollar run up. I want to see New Zealand dollar run up. Like I said, I'm not really doing much on Aussie dollar there, but euro dollar, New Zealand dollar, I think are kind of the big dollar trades I'm going to be looking for, and kind of trying to take those, in that direction. But in the short term, what do we have on this, on this euro dollar, on that same thing on the Aussie dollar? We have created from these little moves higher some nice little market imbalances, right? So now 112.95 is a target. Now 112.65-ish area is a target. And the euro dollar might be headed into these upper, weekly pivots and market imbalances, or it might give us that chance, pull back, and then we can start kind of buying into some of those dips. So that's what we're going to kind of be watching for and looking for. But I just wanted to give kind of a really kind of brief, quick review about why, why we're looking at some of these dollar pairs to go the direction that they're going. Now, let's spend a moment on the trade that we're in, which is the dollar peso. So why are we trading dollar peso if I think that there's maybe a better chance of dollar weakness than dollar strength? And we've got a buy trade on dollar peso, which is a dollar strength movement. So somebody in the chat, I think Mel, I don't know, Mel, are you in here with us? You joining us here? I think it might have been Mel, or it might have been somebody else. And they said, what was the trigger? Oh, there you are, Mel. And hey, Joe, nice to see you, Joe. And Frank, hello, my friend. Good to see you guys, Carl. So Mel, I think you asked, you said, what was the trigger on the dollar peso, right? Why don't we take this dollar peso trade? Yeah, good to see you, Frank. It's a little bit of a better time for you now in Australia. You've got we're a couple hours closer, so the time zones are a little more favorable. Daylight savings, yeah, good. I don't know how you keep track. Daylight savings is over and beginning. I don't ever know which one is which, but yeah, we definitely are a little more favorable for the times there. So let's talk about this dollar peso for a moment. I've kind of redrawn this short-term channel here and so on, but the peso had this nice little breakout that I was looking at. Nice little falling wedge that broke out. Thing number one. And number two, Manji, I think it did fill quickly. Number two, the dollar peso has more missed targets than I've ever seen, probably ever. And they're nearby, they're far away, they're just everything, right? So that was such a huge part about this dollar peso. I thought, if targets work at all, which we've only made, a bazillion pips trading these targets, then the dollar peso has got to give us something. And honestly, I deliberated a good little bit about this. I thought, do we buy euro dollar or do we buy dollar peso? As you guys have heard me talk about this, I've never been so torn about, everything has got good setups. The dollar index is still fairly consolidated, so it hasn't made, any, it's making a little bit of a push right now, but it hasn't done anything in weeks and really months. And so I thought, which one are we going for? And probably kind of the trigger point for me the most was, number one, all of these targets that we've got right here: daily pivot, weekly pivot, daily pivot, and then of course as we go further back, we've got another daily pivot, and then of course the big guys over here, which is all of our there we go. All of these big targets back here, right? All these big old upper targets. We still have 3 consecutive missed weekly pivots, which is like a big deal, right? And a monthly pivot and daily pivots and just, market imbalances and just all this stuff back here. And I thought, at some point we're going to have to hit that stuff. We're going to have to start getting to those areas. And, and I probably did the slightly contrarian trade and contrarian trade to myself, that is, by the way, because I've been talking about dollar weakness. And I said, you know what? Dollar peso has too many targets to ignore anymore, so I've got to go for it, number one. Number two, we've got a pretty decent bar count developing here on the 30-minute chart. So I know this isn't the scanner group, but and where we talk about scanner trades only, but this is turning into a pretty decent scanner setup. So we've got a bar count here on this 30-minute chart of nearly 300 bars, and I thought, well, you know what? That's something, that's not nothing. And to top it all off from there, let me go to the daily chart here for just a moment. So we have all these targets, we've got this bar count, and then we've got these just fantastic levels to trade against. As I talk about this, as I show you this chart that looks so glorious to me, I still feel conflicted inside. I'm like, ugh. I love this dollar peso trade, but it's got absolutely everything that we want to see, right? It's just in my mind, I've kind of got my anybody know what your basal ganglia is? Anyone know what a basal ganglia is? And I might be saying it wrong, but we got any medical professionals out there? I think it's the I don't know. Is that the lizard brain? Is that the habit part of our brain? I think my basal ganglia got too dialed in on dollar weakness, and I just and so I felt the need to kind of break out a little bit and trade some of this dollar strength. But look at this trend line. This takes us back to July, and this might be lucky, July 17th of 2017, 1717. So we've got this trend line that's been tested and we're right back to testing it, including all of this support running through here. So technically speaking, taking all my opinion out of it, and I think my opinion is what makes me trade a little bit better. I do trust my gut. Taking all of my opinion out of this, this is the best trade setup I've ever seen, probably ever. Taking that out of account, my gut tells me I'm a tiny bit uneasy with this trade still. But the setup is great. What do you guys think? Do you guys think this is a good-looking setup? I mean, we're trading against major support levels, great targets up above, and we have a stinking bar count. Doesn't get too much better than that, but I still, like I said, I'm still a little bit uneasy with this trade. This isn't one of those trades where I say, oh, go against me 800 pips, I don't even care. So that's kind of where we are on dollar peso. But I think this is a great trade. I actually do love the trade. I think it's gonna, I think it'll work out really, really good. Yeah, the swap is not good. The carrying costs of dollar peso long is not great. But remember, guys, this is why I said specifically on this dollar peso, we're in right here. It's a couple of pips against us. And I just said, we're just taking a small market order right here, 18.85. Let's just start small, and then, we may be needing to add to this thing around the 18.50. So it's well above 18.50, but that's the other area that I'm looking for, right, is that 18.50. We're in at 18.85. Our 18.50 kind of takes us down into kind of some of this support here and so on. Anyway, this thing won't continue to drop, endlessly and just leave us, in trouble. It should work out pretty nicely. But what I try to do when I put these trades in here and go for it is I try to just trade in directions that I can say, guess what? If I'm walking to my computer to look at my trade and I trip and I fall and I hit my head and I go into a coma for 6 months, my trade will still be okay, kind of a thing. And I don't know if we have the coma safety trade happening here. So anyway, that's my explanation on the dollar peso and why I'm trading against what I've been talking about. Oftentimes when I do opposite of what I've been talking about, sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. So that's why we're starting small on this puppy. The setup's great, but I'm pretty dialed in on dollar weakness, but the setup was just too good to miss out on. Okay, where do you set your take profit? Yeah, 19.50 and 19.85 are the levels I'm looking for on dollar peso. Dollar peso, yep. Good, Mel. Like it, small entry, not too much to risk. Good. Because, in a worst case scenario, this dollar peso will turn out pretty good. Best case scenario, it'll be fantastic. But in a worst case scenario, we'll add to this a little bit lower against some of those bigger support levels. And then we will, and we'll add a larger position than where we started, right? So if you started at whatever lot size, we might add double that. Down here, so that if this only makes it back up to our 18.85 entry, which is kind of right in this little consolidation area here, then we'll be in profit, right? Our first position might only get back to break even. That's a possibility. It's a total possibility. I don't think that's the case, but that's a possibility. But our second position should have some good profit for us. But I'm going to be real cautious and careful about that second position, we'll see where it goes. Okay, guys. So that, the most important stuff going on right now is where is the dollar going to go? I think the dollar movement's going to be a little bit explosive. So we've got to keep an eye on that, because that's where the pre-summer push and pre-summer movement happens, is usually across dollar pairs. We can see it expressed a bit through yen pairs and some of the others, but typically it's a pretty dollar dominated kind of a movement, and we love it because there's some great opportunities there. And in that dollar dominated movement, whenever it starts to happen, whenever it decides to happen, I want to be long euro dollar, I want to be long New Zealand dollar. And I think that I think that the dollar peso somewhere in the mix will still work out for us. So that's what we're looking for. But the dollar has a little ways to go before we can say that we've got some real legit confirmation that it's breakout time and that it's really go time here. Because really the bigger picture on the on the dollar index itself has been, for basically 8 or 9 months, no real trend, no real direction. And when I say dollar, pre-summer push and big dollar movement, I want to see this thing, run from 9,700 give or take down to 9,150. I want to see this thing just collapse. And so we'll do it. Now, to add to all of the craziness that I'm kind of talking about here, where we're trading this dollar peso, the kind of setup that we have, I am not above, and I'm not above hedging my position here, by the way. And so I watched this euro dollar probably 24-ish hours a day this week, and finally when I decide to take a breather, it makes a big move, which, by the way, part of the reason that I was normally I post some some decent updates and so on, going into things. Yesterday we had, we've got 3 small kids, right? So we had an emergency room run yesterday. Everyone's fine, everything's fine, but we had a little bit of a concern about a fall one of my kids had and hit their head pretty bad, my smallest child. And so, as luck would have it, I'm driving to the hospital, which we live in the middle of nowhere now, and so I'm driving kind of a long way to this children's hospital to take my 11-month-old baby there. And at a time that I would normally be watching this setup. Now, happy to take care of my child, of course, major priority. But it's just ironic that that kind of the bigger movement that I was looking for on the euro dollar started to go right around then. And that's what happened, right? Yesterday afternoon, evening, we started to see this thing make a push for it and make that bigger run into some of these upper targets. But what I'm saying is I am okay, kind of hedging this position and starting to scale in. Like I said, there's like 1% of uneasiness about our dollar peso trade, even though everything there is kind of literally perfect, right? Targets, bar count, trading against a major level. That's all we ever want to see. But I just have that slight uneasiness because I just think that there's dollar, I'm looking at that dollar index chart, and I just think we've got dollar weakness coming. And so with this euro dollar, I'll have a little bit more kind of comfort in scaling into this guy at some of these lower levels. We're probably looking at that 1250, 1260 level. I think it's going to make its way at least back into this 1295, but 1250, 1260 is going to be the spot where I want to trade, get in on some of that and start holding on to this thing into hopefully 11650-ish area, somewhere along those lines. So that's kind of what I'll be looking for. We've got enough long-term big targets on, above on euro dollar, New Zealand dollar, and some of the other ones that I think that they're worth, holding on to and just sitting on and letting them run. So that's kind of where my head is on all of that. And it's interesting that the euro dollar kind of made this push that it's made because, all the news can talk about and all Draghi can talk about, and the European Central Bank that we saw this week is, euro stagnation, right? And that's all I see everywhere is euro stagnation, right? The euro is just not going to, they have no growth. They have no, no even hints of any kind of rate hike in any type of the near future. Everything is just flat. They're not necessarily dovish. They're not necessarily hawkish. They're just totally flat, right? And so that's why, all these, I'm reading all the opinions of a lot of these hedge funders, and they're saying, stay away from euro, stay away from euro. And I'm going, I want to buy the euro. I want to buy euro dollar. I want to get long this, and and we're seeing the moves happen. The targets and the setups that we look for. Even the hedge funders are missing. they're just saying stay away from it. We're going, no, we want to get into it. But there's kind of both things that we're looking for there. Bo, where is a good place to short euro dollar? Well, I don't want to short euro dollar, but you could, I mean, if that's something you're anxious to do, if I would be looking for something in this 1350-ish area to short euro dollar. So we're going to find some short-term, resistance up here, and and I think that could take us back down to some of those market imbalances that we're looking for. So 1350, 1360 is probably where I'd look for that. But have a stop, and this is a tricky little trade, right? So I would much rather be long than short there. But I think up there's kind of a decent little support zone right up in this little area here. Resistance zone. Good heavens. George later read, have I spoken about the dollar peso? Yes, I think I spoke about the dollar peso for 20 minutes. So I don't want to bore everybody else with a recap. So just watch the recording, and yeah, I have a huge explanation on dollar peso. Yes. Okay, so questions, comments, guys. Other thoughts, other things. So what we are looking to do while you think about your questions and think about your comments and so on, what we're looking to do is we want to position ourselves, be prepared for this pre-summer push. It's got me a little bit dialed in on dollar pairs, and I'm getting a little bit of tunnel vision. So I might need your guys' help on on staying open to other pairs and other setups. Mel, yes, dollar CAD. So I had a dollar CAD trade posted for the scanner group this week, which just missed getting filled, which was kind of a bummer because it was such a great entry, such a great trade, but not a great entry, and missed our entry by I think 2 pips, and it was a sell trade up here at 33.90, and this thing just sold off and went crazy. But you can't win them all. Otherwise, on dollar CAD, for the dollar weakness kind of argument, I do like the dollar CAD. We've got a great market imbalance down here at 131.50-ish. We've got a weekly pivot down here, 132.40 area. It's a lot of chop and a lot of messiness here, but I think that. I like that movement. I think that Canadian strength is a pretty decent opportunity, and and those targets look really, really good. And plus, they kind of continue to just go, right? So, we've got some market imbalances and pivots here, monthly pivot here, weekly pivot back here, weekly pivot here, weekly pivot back there. So there's all these old targets on dollar CAD way down below. I don't think there's anything too terribly interesting above. We just barely hit that weekly pivot with that spike over there, and I don't know. I don't think we have anything really major above, and we have a whole bunch of stuff down below. So the dollar CAD does make for a confirming case of getting short U.S. dollar. So yeah, I like dollar CAD, and I think oil has kind of gone nuts and totally bananas. Remember, guys, watching oil? We were probably in a New Zealand CAD trade as oil was just getting killed and it was down in the 40s, and we had a New Zealand CAD trade. And I was going, come on, CAD, let's pick up some steam, let's get some oil movement going. Obviously, our New Zealand CAD trade worked out awesome, and oil just has made this ridiculous comeback. $40 in December, $42 in December to $64 in April. 4 months, and we've seen just a massive comeback on oil. So, and I think that could, I think we're going to see some of this continue. I think we've got double tops and so on coming. We've still got some big targets up here that oil, can and probably will hit in the 70, 68, 70, and so on dollar range. So yeah, I think oil is going to continue to go, and I think dollar CAD along with our dollar weakness trade should be a good one. So we'll be looking at this next week as well. Like I said, we may end up hedging our dollar peso trade a little bit with some of these other dollar weakness setups. But the dollar peso is doing okay. I think this trade will work out just fine for us. So there's that. As far as other other setups go, dollar Swiss is going to be an interesting one, and I think this is going to be one we're going to be peeking at next week. Dollar Swiss, I'll just put this qualifier in here. I love trading Aussie Swiss. I love trading New Zealand Swiss, and I love trading CAD Swiss, and I don't love trading dollar Swiss. So just putting that out there. Dollar Swiss seems to drag on kind of a lot. But the setup is kind of interesting here, right? We've got, we've been hitting some of these upper targets. We've got this weekly pivot that just was missed by a handful of pips, but dollar Swiss doesn't really have anything up above, and it's got a pretty nice little market imbalance down below that I'm just keeping an eye on. This little market imbalance down here around 9,800 is looking pretty interesting on dollar Swiss. So I'm looking at that. I'm trying to kind of see where this thing might be headed. It's on my radar, is what I'm saying. So dollar Swiss is on my radar. We've got a couple of daily pivots down here, a monthly pivot, and a nice market imbalance. I would really like to see, before shorting the dollar Swiss, I'd really like to see a run up into this 101 area. So get it up 100 pips, and really take out that weekly pivot. Really get up into some of this. Let's go to the daily chart for a second. Get up into some of this big hardcore resistance for one more time before selling that dollar Swiss, and then I would probably happily sell it and start targeting some of those lower levels. We've got a weekly and monthly pivot down here as well, all the way down to the 94. Again, I like the dollar weakness side of things, and I think the signs are kind of happening here. So dollar Swiss is on the radar. Short dollar Swiss, long euro dollar, long New Zealand dollar, short dollar CAD. I'm liking all of those. I don't want to stack too heavily in one favor or the other in case we do get a dollar surprise. But these are all kind of saying, yeah, probably time to short the dollar. Let's talk about New Zealand dollar for 2 seconds. So New Zealand dollar. Does anybody have any questions, by the way? I've been talking nonstop for 35 minutes without taking a breath. I want to give you guys a moment to kind of gather your thoughts. Any questions? Everyone clear on everything? Anybody completely disagree? Everybody totally agree? Are we in the middle? Are we somewhere in there? Let me know. Okie dokie. So we've got some really big stuff here that I just want to attack. We've been pretty patient the last week or so, and I think these trades are really coming up for us. I don't particularly love New Zealand dollar strength. New Zealand strength itself. It's not my favorite trade. I want to be short New Zealand CAD. I want to be long Aussie New Zealand, and so I don't love New Zealand dollar itself strength, but I do like the New Zealand dollar US dollar trade. We've got this beautiful, massive, crazy market imbalance here that is going to get hit probably much sooner than later. We don't have anything too interesting as far as nearby pivots go. We've got a little daily pivot and then that big market imbalance. But as I showed earlier in the webinar, we've got this daily chart that has got pretty massive upper targets, right? Monthly pivot, weekly pivot, weekly pivot. There's a whole bunch of dailies in there. There's market imbalances in there, all in that 72, 73. Area, and so I would say that there's basically 100% chance New Zealand dollar is going to get up here sooner than later, and probably pretty soon. But again, I like, New Zealand weakness on everything else, but I think this one is, probably going to give us at least a decent short-term trade coming up. And so I want to, I want to be ready for this. As we look at New Zealand dollar with some of the lower targets and so on, some of this flash crashy type stuff over here, we've got a weekly and a daily pivot that are untouched here. And that's, I'm paying attention to that for sure. But I think it might be time to, keep our ear to the floor and see how this turns out. A bullish engulfing candle would be interesting, and it may not turn out to be. It might just turn out that we get some train tracks here, and that's okay as well. But that daily candle is looking interesting, and I've got my eye on that. So dollar, dollar weakness, I think, is coming, but we've got to, we're kind of diversifying just a hair, which I don't always like to do actually, but we're diversifying a little bit with this dollar peso because of how good of a setup it is. So, but we won't, I won't hesitate to go a little bit split personality on our trades and have a dollar long and a dollar short trade at the same time. So don't judge me, just know why I'm doing it. And I think they should be good. But this week, guys, one thing, as I look at the charts, and I just look at all the setups. It was a quiet week, and then things really started to move a little bit better towards the end of the week. But there were some little shorter term trades to be had for sure. The bigger setups I wanted to see just weren't happening. And, I want you guys to know that I consider myself a semi-master of patience, right? I can just sit and wait and wait and wait. But even after 4 or 5 days, I thought to myself, I got to do something here. Like I'm not working if I'm not trading. And, and I had to remind myself that's the thing that I tell you guys constantly, right? Which is we, when the market isn't giving us what we want to see, don't take a trade. Don't take a trade. And, I stayed the course. I didn't get into the dollar peso out of desperation. I got into it. I actually had to talk myself into it because I said, this setup is perfect. Take the dang trade, because I thought, it doesn't go in my dollar weakness. Doesn't fit my dollar weakness, thesis here. And but the trade was perfect. I just said, I got to take it. But otherwise, all the rest of these trades, all the rest of these setups, they weren't giving me what I wanted to see, so I didn't take a trade. And it's hard for me not to take a trade. It's super hard for me not to take a trade because, I kind of always want to be in the market. I kind of always want to be, participating in the movement that happens from day to day. And so it was hard to stay out of the market, but it's a good reminder that, that we need to. And from time to time, I think we have continuously been in trades in the group. I don't think we've had a flat period of no open trades or no pending orders. We just went for, 4 days probably without an open trade or a pending order. And I don't think that's happened in 6 months probably. So it's not normal, but when it happens, we just got to say it's okay. It's okay. We're not going to get out of the swing of things. We're not going to forget how to trade. It's not, it's like riding a bike. We might need to just take a little break from it for a day or 2 or 3, and that we did this week. But things are starting to unleash a little bit, and I think we've got some good stuff in the works. Lester, thoughts on New Zealand Swiss? Yeah, I like New Zealand Swiss. As I mentioned, I love all Swiss pairs except for the dollar Swiss, and that's probably the one I'm going to have to end up trading most. But New Zealand Swiss is cool because we've got a nice monthly pivot, a nice missed monthly pivot up here. We've got a market imbalance up here. I like New Zealand Swiss. This is a decent little mover. It spends most of the time being consolidated, which means that it really chases after those missed targets. Got a couple of daily pivots back here, but definitely breaking out and making a push towards that market imbalance up there and potentially that monthly pivot. So, yeah, I like it. As far as where I would try to trade this or where I would try to take an entry, I don't know yet. I'm watching it. It's not kind of entry zone for me just yet, but I'm watching it. like I said, I'm kind of looking a tiny bit more for Swiss franc strength and New Zealand weakness, and this is New Zealand strength and Swiss franc weakness to trade up to those levels. So, again, it's a little out of where I want to see some of these, some of these pairs go, but it will get up there. It will get up there. It'll hit that market imbalance, and probably, in the next 2 to 3 weeks at the most, I would say it'll probably be up there. So, we're going to watch it. We'll keep an eye on it, but it's like I said, it's a little against what I want to see, but there's great targets up there for sure. Good one to bring up, Lester. George, gold descending triangle. Yeah. I don't talk about gold too much in here because half the people can't trade gold, but we'll discuss it. I don't know that I see, a ton. Yeah, it is the Widowmaker. I don't know that I see a ton of greatness here on gold. We had some market imbalances and some levels. This is what I wanted to see on gold. The whole thing that that I wanted to see happen was get gold up into this 1360-75 area. We got up into 1350, just shy of 1350. And it's just coming right back down to some pretty solid, support here. I don't know that I would look at the triangle as much as look at, this big consolidation. Gold's coming back to a decision point, which is 1285-ish area, and so that's kind of the area that I'd be watching. And just as I watched it back here, I would be watching it right near the beach, right there. So, so I think gold's going to come to that, little headway right there, and we'll have to see where it goes from that. But we don't have any really major missed upper targets. We do have some lower targets on gold, which again is kind of a dollar strength type of a argument. So kind of like the dollar peso, we've got all these targets in the direction of dollar weakness or dollar strength on gold. So, weekly pivot, monthly pivot, weekly pivot, weekly pivot, monthly pivot right there as well. So, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. If dollar crashes, gold would go up. Yes, exactly. But, this is again taking us to that dollar peso situation. Dollar peso and gold are telling us dollar strength is coming. Euro dollar, New Zealand dollar, dollar CAD, dollar Swiss franc, dollar index are telling us dollar weakness. So dollar strength on these two, dollar weakness on those 4 or 5. And that's why I've been really, really torn about dollar pairs. I've been saying to myself, holy smokes, which one are we going to get here? So that's why I've been, a little bit extra patient. I want to make sure we have such a clear picture on, on where things are headed, and we just haven't quite had that with the dollar yet. So that's why I just said, you know what, we're jumping off the cliff. We're taking a peso trade. It's the best looking one we have right now, and we'll see where it goes. Okay, guys, how does everybody feel about money management, market, analysis, all the things that we're looking at? Does anybody have any questions about any of that stuff? Let's talk about it. I want to make sure that everyone's kind of clear on what we're doing. Remember, guys, remember, when I say stuff like this, we are taking a small market order, a small position, starting small. We're scaling in potentially at 1850. I'm always going to say that type of stuff for every single trade. It's a safe bet to assume that's what we're always doing, because that's absolutely what we're always doing. We're always starting a position off small, and then we are, and then we're scaling in, and we're scaling in bigger, right? We start small and we scale in bigger, and that's how we do it, right? So, so the money management side of things, people always ask me. They say, they say, where, how do we calculate risk? Give yourself a couple hundred pips. That's what we need in this market. Give yourself a couple hundred pips. I'm not using stop losses on really most of these trades, any of these trades. I'm happy to use stop losses to protect ourselves and protect profit. But we get into trades that have an incredibly high probability of working, And so that's why we stick with these trades until they work. And most of the time, it's not, a dragged out, horrible process. We're going to be looking at, 1 to 200 pips of drawdown on some of these trades. And so that's why we're always starting small and scaling into these things. Mel, doing well so far. Can't argue with success. Hey, that's right. Good. Well said. I like the technique. It requires patience, but does not move too fast to react most of the time. Yeah, and that's what I like too. That's how I've tried to kind of, put things together. I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to get into the trades. Everybody has a chance to get out of the trades. All of that. That's important. And and I want to get the bigger, the bigger swings and the bigger movements. So that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing here. So good stuff, guys. Excelente. I think that's all I've got for this morning. You guys, yeah, the summer moves are coming. Let's hope this summer move gives us, what we need on the dollar peso. I think it will, but we're going to be watching. We'll be ready for all these guys to start to scoot and start to move, and and just go for it from there. So, yes, the winter moves for you, George. That's right. That's right. Okay, guys, very, very good stuff. Questions, comments, thoughts? I'm happy to answer any of it. And if not, have such a stinking wonderful weekend. And thank you, Lester. Yes, you have a great weekend as well. Everyone have a really, really good weekend. Thanks for being on with us. Good to see you all. And we'll catch you back here on Monday. So thanks, guys. Good to see you all. Happy trading. We'll have more orders and details coming. But for now, we'll keep an eye on this dollar Mexicano peso. And we'll take it from there. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend and a great Friday. We'll see you all very soon. Take care, guys.